All right, well, I might make a start. So, thank you for joining me for this little chat about providing foot care at events, something that I do every now and then, and something I think is kind of important. So, if you're volunteering your time to do foot care, basically 95 to 100% of it's going to be managing blisters. So, if we have a look at the different types of races, they vary in terms of distance. I think it's fair to say, or it is fair to say, that the longer you run or walk, the more likely you are to get blisters. So if you're at one of the long ones, you'll be definitely seeing a lot. You'll get different types of blisters or different blister locations depending on the event. For example, the blisters on the back of the heel, we often get them more in walking than in running events. There's going to be a wide variety of the participants. So some people are going to be well used to running the marathon event or however far it is, but especially the events that have a fundraising component, they're the ones that you'll find a lot of people aren't used to. They're not accustomed to this activity, or at least they're not accustomed to the length or the duration of activity, and they're definitely going to get blisters, and they may not know how bad they're going to get them. Some races have foot care and others don't. And of course, some have pre-race education and certainly a lot of them don't. So there's a lot of variability to the races. But if we look at every race, it kind of has this, it goes through this sequence. So there's like the excitement of the sign up. There's the 8 weeks, 4 months, however long of preparation and training. There's the week before the race where panic sets in. There's the event itself. There's the immediate post-race. And I'm talking more like about an hour after crossing the finish line. There's the recovery, and whether we like it or not, there's the lasting impressions that people take away with them. So what is our role here? Is it blister treatment? Is it blister prevention? Or is it a bit of both? Or is it just to get some CPD points? Is it important? Well, I mean, a lot of people think that blisters aren't that big a deal. They think they're rather insignificant injury at worst. But, we know that blisters can adversely affect performance, can adversely affect their gait, and can also adversely affect the experience of the event. And event organisers will be well tuned into that. And I think if we really do value our role as foot health experts, I think we would have to say that this is important. If we're providing foot care at events, we want it to be quite good. When should we be having an input? Should it be during the race only? Should it be at the finish line putting Band-Aids on blisters, or should it be before the event? How should we be having input? So if we're giving education, should that be in person? Should it be online? Do we want to do PowerPoint presentations to groups or webinars? And also, are we having some sort of input during the treatment episode as to prevention of that blister? And what resources are needed and who pays for it? I'd like to think that you as the podiatrist don't have to pay for the resources that you take. Does the event pay for them? So if we think about Oxfam Trail Walker, they pay for a lot of gear. They put massive effort into having a podiatry presence at that event. But is the equipment and the consumables that they provide us, is it good enough to allow us to, do everything we need to do with blisters? Who knows? But look, let's have a look at my ideal blister management scenario. At the sign up, there's not really much that you can do. Everyone is pretty much excited to be part of the event. But I'd like to think that the event website has maybe some information about the prevalence of blisters, and even has something where they can encourage participants to seek podiatry advice, so that they can maximise their experience at this event. This is where I think the most important work is done. And to me, if podiatry only had input in one part of this whole thing, it would be at this stage. It would be in the preparation and training. So that could be in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. What you want to avoid, though, is just general, get shoes that fit well, get moisture wicking socks. This stuff isn't particularly helpful, just listing off all the preventions that there are. What you want to do when you're doing a presentation is you want to alert people to the fact that there's new information about blisters, that blisters are predictable, and that will pique their interest, because as far as they're concerned, blisters are completely unpredictable to them. They don't know when they're going to get them and where they're going to get them. So that's something that's important to know. And if they realise that there's something new, even though they think that they've tried everything, they haven't tried everything. So it's important to sort of pique their interest in this presentation and get them thinking about, gee whiz, maybe I haven't sort of tried everything. The aim of the PowerPoint presentation, no matter how you give it, is to get those people that are interested enough to come and see you for a consultation, so that you can help them identify and predict those blisters that they're most likely to get, and to show them the best ways for preventing that. And basically that forms a blister plan. A blister plan is really necessary. That you got to teach them stuff that they just don't know and is completely new to them. So it really is important to give them something written down so that they can follow it and set them up for success. And if you really want to hands off, like if you don't really have the time to put into educating people before the event, there's always the Fix My Foot Blisters Fast course. So that's a course that I created in 2016. It gets great feedback, and it really is designed for people, because I would get a lot of emails and stuff asking me to help people to prepare them for such and such an event, and it just got too much, so I had to put it all in a course. So this really walks people through all those steps. It walks them through identifying blisters according to where they are on their foot. The main trap that people fall into is they think of blisters as just a single entity, whereas in reality, we need to be addressing blisters according to the anatomical location. Because everyone's feet is structured and functions a little bit differently, and you can't really, for those people that are really blister prone or are very anxious about the impact blisters are going to have on their event, you can't really give them great advice without actually having a look at their function and structure. So that's going to mean a consultation. And yeah, that's what your PowerPoint presentation should really be aiming to do. In the week before the race, you really don't want to be, you want to be calming everything down, because people will start wanting to be chopping and changing and making, putting new preventions in place because they realise they're quite unprepared. Really, our preventions should be decided on and they should be implemented. If they need a new orthotic cover, that should be all sorted and worn in, and get them to know that they need to have their blister kit. First of all, they need a blister kit. Second of all, to restock it, because generally during their training, they would have used a few things, got used to what works, what helps, how things work. So they need to restock that so it's available for the race. Then we've got the event itself. Now, as it stands, this is generally where podiatry is involved, which makes sense. So we're seeing people generally for treatment episodes. We're not doing a lot in prevention because, even at Oxfam Trail Walker, where podiatrists about every 5Ks or something, generally blisters will happen in between stations. You know, the hotspot stage doesn't last long. So we're generally treating blisters, but it's important to tell this participant that now that they've had this blister in this location, this actually forms part of their blister history now. And those blisters that we've ever had before are the ones that we should just expect to get at the next event that we're going to take part in. So you just expect to get them, you find out what the best prevention is, you have that in place. So before you even reach the start line, just so that you can guarantee that that blister is not going to happen. So we can give a little bit of preventive advice at this stage rather than literally putting Band-Aids on blisters. I think the best case scenario here is actually assisted self-maintenance. And what that essentially is if there's a podiatrist on course, the participant brings their blister kit with them, and the podiatrist helps either implement or discuss what the options are according to what gear they have in their blister kit. Now, that might seem a bit radical, and it would require a bit of organisation in preparation to prepare people to know that there's not going to be a podiatrist that just has everything there. But I think it strikes a balance between, number one, podiatrists paying for themselves to take all the gear and implement the type of prevention and treatment that they'd like to implement, and between being limited by the gear that the event provides. So if we think of Oxfam Trail Walker, they really are very good at involving podiatry in Australia, but felt and fixation tape is really the most advanced things that we've got, and that doesn't allow us to do much in the way of blister treatment. Remembering that blister treatment isn't just first aid. Proper blister treatment is the first aid plus the prevention that should have been in place in the first place. So, you know, we need things like gel toe sleeves, Engo patches, maybe 2 times blister shield powder. You can't expect a podiatrist to pay for this stuff and bring it with them. You also can't really, I guess, expect the event to pay for it. It would end up quite costly when you think about how many people do Trail Walker. So I would like to think that participants could be educated to have a well-stocked blister kit. They've put in the work in their preparation and training to have the best preventions in place before they even start. They've got some extra stuff in their kit. They can come and see the podiatrist with their kit, and we can implement the best treatment or prevention at that stage. Bit radical, but that's my thoughts. Then we've got the immediate post-race time, and I've been to, I think it was HBF Run for a Reason, and podiatry had a tent at the oval where they finished, and people would sort of wander past and pick up a pamphlet or something. Essentially what people are looking for here is for you to put a Band-Aid on their blister. And to me, I'm not interested in doing that. Any monkey can put a Band-Aid on a blister at the finish line. And people are just looking to get home. They're looking to Instagram their blisters so everyone can say how tough they are. And you know, it's understandable, but in terms of how it reflects on us as podiatrists, and personally as podiatrists, I don't think it's great to be involved at this stage unless there's a really dedicated push to promote the fact that the blisters that they've got now, they constitute their blister history. The next time they do something like this, they should expect to get these blisters, and they should have researched in the meantime the best blister prevention strategies, and they should have that in place before they even start. The recovery, which could take days or weeks, you know, they're recovering from ankle sprains or DOMs or blisters or whatever it is. But in terms of blisters, you might see a couple of people after the event. You're probably not going to see them next day or day after. By the time you see them a week or two later, their blisters are pretty much healed enough to not really need much in the way of treatment. But really hammer home the blister history element here. This is where you're giving them preventive advice for the next time they've bothered to come and see you about this blister after the race. Don't just sort of give them a bit of a, this is how you'll tape it next time. Really go into detail about what suits this blister location based on their structure and their function. And if they don't get it sorted now, which is fine, at least let them know that you're the go-to person before their next event to get them fully kitted up with everything that they need so that they can do this event blister-free. And the lasting impressions is just something that I want you to think about, because they are left with lasting impressions of us individually as podiatrists and of our profession. I think it's quite important, and I'm not sure we really think about this enough, but if we were to be involved at all, I'd like to think it's in the preparation and training stage. If we are just involved in blister treatment during the event, and we're limited in the supplies that we have, the consumable supplies that we can use to implement the best of first aid and prevention, which means treatment, the participant doesn't know that. Participant doesn't know we're limited by what's available from the event organisers. They just think this is the best that a podiatrist can do in terms of blister treatment. I think that's not so great. If they are bringing their own blister kits, then of course, if you're limited in what you can do with that blister because they haven't bothered to get together a decent blister kit, well, that's kind of on them. And as long as you've given them the education beforehand and they've chosen to come in with this blister kit, then, that's on them. But you can advise them at least on the best preventions for next time. And certainly I'd be a bit wary about how we are involved immediately post-race. I think if we are literally just putting Band-Aids on blisters and handing out a pamphlet that isn't actually much use, I think that that's even more dangerous. So that's the anatomy of an event and all the areas that we can have input. Now, if you are interested in volunteering your time and efforts at a race, then great. That's really, really cool. If you need help in education and resources, I can definitely provide it. We've got Blister Prevention University, which is tells you about the pros and cons of all the strategies, how they work, how they don't work, and what's best for each anatomical location. And if you want to get some educational materials, in Blister Prevention Business, you get the My Blister Plan template, which is like a customizable template that you can change the colors, add your logo, etc. And it literally is you fill in the blanks when you've got a patient with you and you're doing a blister plan. And really what you're doing is you're finding the most likely blisters that they're going to suffer and writing down what the best preventions are for them based on your examination, all the rest of it. So My Blister Plan is really, really very good, and it'd be great if you had that in your practices for those people that come and see you specifically for blisters. PowerPoint presentations, got a bunch of them in Blister Prevention Business. We've got one for running, walking, hiking. I've got a special one for Oxfam Trail Walker, netball, and a bunch of others. And basically these are some screenshots. So we've got stats on that are relevant to the event. We've got some pictures about how bad things can get. The one in the middle, that's how we generate the blister plan for people. There's a method and a structure to choosing the best preventions for your blisters. And this is what we go through. So this is what you'll go through in your consultation to create their blister plan. So I've got a bunch of PowerPoints that you can use. And of course, there's the Fix My Foot Blisters Fast course. Now, anyone can direct a patient to that course and they can do the course. It costs $300 to do it. But if you're a member of Blister Prevention Business, you are able to give your patients a $200 discount. So it costs them $100. So essentially that makes you look good. And it gets the best information into the hands of your patients, which is great because they've got it when you're not available, and they won't be ringing you and making, multiple appointments. They can troubleshoot their blisters no matter whether it's the weekend or the middle of the night. All the information's there, and it tells them when they need to see a podiatrist for the biomechanical parts of blister causation. So when your patient buys that for $100, I actually forward that whole $100 to you at the end of the month. That's how determined I am for podiatrists to be giving great information to their patients about blisters, and for our patients to be getting great information. So it's a business, it's a revenue generating potential for your business, and all of those resources and more are in Blister Prevention Business. So that is pretty much it. All right, guys, any questions? Thanks, Mark. Anyone doing a foot care at an event soon? Hopefully soon. All right, Sol. Cool. Well, if you need any help, hit me up. Yeah, I think at races, it's an opportunity for podiatrists to get involved, and I think it's underdone at the moment, basically. So I know that even though the best efforts are put in the preparation and training, that can take a bit of work, and really that's my aim, is to minimize that workload on you. So that's why I provide all the resources. So if you need a hand, it's all there. All right, guys, well, I shall sign off. And if you have a question anytime, just email me at support@blisterpod.com. Cheers, guys. See you.